Hi, hello and welcome to the Evolving Professional. This is the podcast hosted by CM Academy. Here, we speak to your everyday professional, exploring their career journey and learning lessons from them. Today, in line with the theme of the Women's Day, Give to Gain, we are pleased to have Stella Orengo speak to us on issues that have been pertinent these past days on gender-based violence and femicide. So help me welcome Stella Orengo, who's now seated at the other side. The tables have turned. She hosts this podcast, but today she'll be our lead guest, helping us navigate the issues of femicide and gender-based violence. Stella, welcome to the show once again. We are very pleased to have you here. Focusing on the theme of Give to Gain, which is the theme for this year's Women's Day. From your position, how does this theme relate to the issues of gender-based violence and femicide?
Thank you, Susan, and I'm delighted to be sitting on the other side, being asked the questions, being put on the spot. So International Women's Day is celebrated on the 8th of March every year. And it's usually a day where we just try to see what milestones we've made in terms of women's rights and girls. So this year's theme is Give to Gain. And I'm glad that as a podcast, we chose to do this session specifically to celebrate Women's Day. And for us as professionals, there's that information that we are giving out to women and to girls.
How sensitized is the society? How sensitized are we as a society on matters gender-based violence and also issues concerning femicide?
Okay, so first of all, it's a very interesting question. And it's also a sad one, that when you're talking about gender-based violence, most people, if you walked out of here and asked people what is gender-based violence, the person who knows or has heard about GBV will tell you if someone beats me. Or if they have more knowledge, they will tell you if I'm sexually abused or raped. If there's defilement for children and rape for adults, then that is GBV. Then, if you go to now the people who are more knowledgeable, they're able to tell you gender-based violence transcends sexual, physical to emotional, psychological. If you go to other areas, they do not even know that certain things that are happening at GBV, at gender-based violence. So it depends with who are you talking to, and what is their history, what is their understanding, their level of knowledge. So in terms, and that is an indictment to us as the society, and maybe let's say as professionals, that we have this information, but we don't go out there to give it to people so that they can understand that gender-based violence is not just physical, someone is beating me up, that there's defilement or rape, that it transcends physical and sexual to other forms. So that is an indictment to us. If you come to, because we are lawyers, so we will of course default to the law. If you go to the law, our law actually recognizes other forms of gender-based violence. But again, translating that to someone, the kawaida citizen, there's a gap. So yes, we have done quite some bit in terms of creating awareness about GBV, but we still have a long way to go. And allow me to give an example. This one is something I have come across. If you went and asked certain groups of women if being beaten by the husband is GBV, they will tell you no. The understanding of that woman is, if I'm being beaten, I'm loved. So there's nothing about GBV there, yet it is GBV. Yes.
Okay, Stella, I'd like to follow that up. of course, you're saying a level of awareness is not where it needs to be. And also you're saying the society is socialized to treat certain GBV incidents as the norm or as the common thing that happens, which is quite sad. But when we look at institutions that are supposed to do this kind of sensitization, when we look at the institutions that are, because you're also talking about reporting incidences of GBV, even where the awareness has been raised and someone wants to make a case that they've been abused, how strong are these institutions and what is needed to make them stronger? What is needed to sensitize the society about these institutions and what kind of support they can expect from these institutions, government and otherwise?
Okay. So allow me, before answering that question, to make a distinction. So when we're talking about gender-based violence, there's also the issue of femicide. And what is femicide? Femicide is the intentional killing of women and girls because of their gender. So it's always motivated by that you're a woman, that you're being killed because you're a woman or a girl. And you'll find people asking, but why can't you just, and I'm bringing that to institutions. So why can't, for example, the judiciary just treat this as a homicide, for example? The reason why that is a dangerous argument, and I'm not here calling for having more laws, but strengthening the ones that we exist, is a homicide is distinguished from femicide, because femicide, we say you're targeting that woman because they are women, because they are girls. And usually when you look at the stories in the news, in the newspapers, for example, and on social media, you'll discover that whenever we have cases of femicide, the perpetrator must have tortured this person, then went ahead to kill them. Then after killing them, there's either they dismember the body or they deface. There's also issues of rape or defilement. So it follows a very gendered pattern. Yeah? And that's why it's important to name that this is a femicide. And usually other countries have gone ahead to show that femicide is actually the most extreme manifestation of gender-based violence. So before it got to femicide, this woman or girl being fatally injured, there was some form of violence, whether it was physical, psychological, or emotional. Now let's go back to institutions. So we have a tendency to say, oh, the judiciary is not doing much, the police are not doing much, the hospitals, we don't have safe houses. But we need to look at all these institutions in a continuum. For judiciary to function, they must have people who are knowledgeable, who understand that this is femicide and not just a homicide. So when we look at institutions, we look at them in terms of holistic. If a woman in Tana River, for example, is calling the police and asking, can you come and rescue me? I'm being physically beaten, assaulted. Does that police have the resources to move from the police station to come and rescue you? If they come and rescue you and your children, for example, and there are no safe houses, where do they put you? So if they tell you go back, because they cannot tell you to be in the police station, they can host you for maybe 24 hours, yeah? So there's a lot, for me, when you're talking about even the institutions and how responsive they are, we need to look at the bigger picture. Why are these institutions not functioning? We've had issues around, again, because we are lawyers in the justice sector, where cases of gender-based violence and femicide are actually taken to those alternative dispute resolution mechanisms that we have, those local ones. And when you go to the local ones, the wazes tell the women, sasa wewe enda usamehe mzee, muone vile mutaishi. And your family is telling you, you don't go and report that. because you will not come back here. So you get a way to live, yeah? So you see, like for these alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, the traditional ones, they do not have an understanding that femicide, for example, or any other form of GBV is a criminal offense. So you cannot have people here forgiving each other. It should be processed through the court system. Yes.
That's very interesting how you relate these issues, Stella, because it also speaks to almost the societal psyche. What is the response? And also ties it to the fact that how sensitized are they for them to recognize certain incidences as gender-based violence, and what is the psyche in terms of how are they processing it. I'll give an example of recently we've had this incident of the Russian guy, and you've had, it caused a lot of gender, I'd call them gender wars and gender divide. And of course, if you've not heard about it, there was a certain Russian guy who just picked women off the streets and took them to their house and of course filmed their very intimate moments and posted them online. And you could hear certain sentiments from different sectors and certain people saying it served them right. They had it coming without really properly realizing that these women had faced a certain kind of violence. As a professional, how would you speak to those issues, and how would you rate our societal psyche in terms of the responses that you saw concerning this issue?
Okay. It's a very emotive issue, and I think it keeps on coming back, especially where you see like the society expected these women not even to go with a stranger to an Airbnb, and so that's why they're saying they deserve them right. Yes. But there's something called victim blaming when it comes to GBV and all the manifestations of gender-based violence. Victim blaming is where you decide to blame the victim without looking at other intervening factors. And when we start victim blaming, we lose focus of what the issue is. For me, why is this woman who has seen other women being killed for going to secluded places with strangers, still feeling like they need to go with this Russian man? Some were saying, tumeona mzungu and nimeona hiyo ni ticket ya kutoka. So what does that tell you? It's not just about this woman took themselves there. For them, they were like, this is my ticket out of poverty or whatever it is. And it brings up the issue of power, relations, and differentials between men and women, which is something if we got into in this discussion, we might discuss and discuss and discuss. But for me, usually it is, yes, sensitize women and girls that you, of course, do not deliberately put yourself in danger. But beyond that, ask yourself, why is it that we have been talking about and telling women, don't go, don't do this, but they're still doing it? So it means there's something else. So this something else is what we need to deal with. Yes.
Interesting that you say there's something else. Speaks of patterns, and how we take note of these patterns is by viewing past data. From where you sit, is there enough data to tell us about these social patterns to help us anticipate of certain crime and certain incidents of gender-based violence and arrest these incidents even before they manifest? Because we have data to inform us there's a particular area that is prone, so that even as you're calling upon this institution, they can perhaps be more vigilant in this area. So what is the data, Sarah? Where do we get the data? Is there enough data to inform us about these issues?
One of the challenges in dealing with GBV and femicide, and now that it's Women's Day, we will see violence against women and girls, has been not the lack of data per se, but insufficient data. And beyond insufficient data, there's something we call disaggregated data. So allow me to break it down this way. And women, I'll discuss this. It being women, International Women's Day, allow me to just draw a parallel. If you take the data that is existing and look at how many men, for example, have been killed against women, you find, if you have 100 people killed, most likely 80 will be men and 20 will be women. Just a rough looking at who has died, how many are women, how many are men. So you'll get 80. So if you use that data, you will see more men are being killed than women. Now, if you disaggregate that data and go and look at, so the 20 women who were killed, why were they killed? Put it this way, how many men, if you find a group of 5 men and 4 have been beaten by women, for example, and the reason why the 4 were beaten by women is because they were not able to provide. So we are pegging the violence on the men because of the inability to provide. What is the ability to provide? It's a gendered question. Yes. Yeah. So if we now go back to that one I was using just to illustrate the issue of gender. Let's go back to our 20 women. So 5 were killed out of road traffic accident. 15 were killed by an intimate partner because there's been violence in that home. 1 was killed because maybe someone came and if it's a young girl, trying to defile them. If it's a woman, someone was raping them. And then now in the process, they are killed. So if you disaggregate that data, then you're able to see 15 were actually killed because of their gender, while 5 were just killed through road traffic accident. It wasn't targeted on their gender. So what we don't have is that disaggregated data. And why don't we have that? One, most women and girls, because of society normalizing violence against women and girls, and because of our cultural role and our socialization, they shy away from coming to report. So we may, if people were reporting, we may have more numbers than what we see. That is one. The other reason why we do not have sufficient data is a woman will be killed in the home by an intimate partner or by a husband, but then it will be reported as a homicide. So we will say 20 women died against our 80 men. But if someone was to come and look at the indicators and follow patterns and go and ask what was happening, or they used to fight, they used to do this, yes? If you look at all that and then bring it now, so that is the investigator doing it. You go and look for this information, then you're able to say, no, she died, she was killed, but these are the circumstances. So it cannot be a homicide, it is a femicide. So we do not have data for those, some of those 2 reasons, but also that our database on these cases of violence, it's so scattered. If I go and report to the police, we do not have a way to link what you've reported to the police with what I went and reported to the Nyumba Kumi, to the chief, to the hospitals. If you have safe houses which are taking on women, that data has not been linked to these other institutions. So there's still a problem for data. And if you look at the task force report on GBV, including femicide, one of the key recommendations they make is around data. Having a centralized database and disaggregating that data according to indicators. Yes.
Thank you, Stella. Just by way of a parting shot and also by way of tying everything that we've spoken about in this segment to the theme, which is Give to Gain. What would be the recommendations? I know you've talked about integrating the data that's out there so that it is central and it is not different institutions having their own data sets, but integrating that data so that there is a central repository for the same. So what other recommendations would you give? What should the society give? What should the institutions give in order to make women safe, to avert incidences of GBV, and in the worst case scenario, because I think we've learned in this podcast that femicide is actually the extreme case, and it's extreme because of the finality. Once you're dead, that's it. It's the extreme end of gender-based violence.
Wow, my parting shot. I have so many recommendations, but top on my head, can society stop normalizing violence against women and girls? And when we normalize, we also victim blame. So we should also stop victim blaming. And if we use the case of the Russian guy and the women who are involved, if you start blaming those women and saying they knew and they went, we lose sight of the fundamental question that the people who we are actually, the women and girls, who we were trying to protect against violence, it's a woman who has no source of livelihood. They're so impoverished, they're actually vulnerable. Yeah. So that's why for me, I usually encourage, please don't victim blame. We have a big group of women and girls who are so vulnerable, who need us to speak out against violence, against the targets women and girls. So that is for the society, and even us in our as individuals, in our capacities as families and communities. The other thing I would advise is for professionals. Give out this information. There's something, when you look at that report, the task force report, they talk about something called soil for sex, happening in, I think, Migori, around there. In the past, we knew, even me as a professional, I knew about sex for fish. I never heard about soil for sex. But when you look at it, it's a way of economic abuse of women. Yeah, because a woman is so impoverished, so they come, and because they cannot buy fish from, what are they, those people who go out to the fish?
The fishermen.
Yes. So you must give in sex to get fish. So it tells you already here there's an imbalance in terms of economic, the economic situation. That's what's driving this woman to do that. So if you're able to deal with that, then we might avert that issue. So as professionals, are we able to use the information that we have to tell people, this one is economic abuse. This one, someone stalking you is a form of abuse. Yeah, so that we recognize, so that people are able to recognize abuse. You know, we usually say, if you can't name something, you can't deal with it. So they should be able to say with clarity that this is abuse and this is my avenue out of it. Then this is to government and state institutions. They're obligated to provide resources, and we know resources are limited. But things like safe houses, we do not have them in abundance. In fact, we don't have enough safe houses, and they require money to run. So that's why now for government, you can allocate a certain amount towards that, but then also look for other development partners to come and fund that agenda. And lastly, social media. It features in that report. I think we use, let me not say I think, I believe we use social media very irresponsibly, and it's a driver. As much as social media has helped us to amplify issues of violence against women and girls and femicide, it's also a big driver.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yes, actually on the mindset. Because if you start victim blaming that on that social media forum, then there are people who pick up that mindset, yeah, and run with it. So for me, I also urge responsible use of social media, not to victim blame, to bring out these campaigns and call perpetrators to account, but not to victim blame and normalize violence against women and girls.
Thank you, Stella, for reminding us that we need to give knowledge, we need to give resources, both monetary and in kind, in order to keep women safe. That has been our segment. Happy Women's Day to all our viewers.